Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. We certainly are happy and glad that you've taken a little time out of your busy day to join Brand USA staff and board of directors for our quarterly board meeting. We're certainly looking forward to sharing with you some of the things that are coming out as we continue to all manage against unprecedented times. This is the first meeting we have after the appointment of two new board members and the reappointment of one. So I would like to welcome these board members who will be serving a 3-year term on the board of directors. First is the reappointment of Noel Henschel. Noel is the CEO and co-founder of American Tours International, or better known ATI. And so we're glad to have her rejoining us for another term on the board. And then we have two new board members, Kristen Esposito. She's the principal of Esposito Global Partners, and then Keiko Oral. She is the executive director of the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism. And so welcome to the two newest board members. Glad to have you on board and glad to have you with us today. What you're going to hear today from the report outs is more good news. We have had a successful audit, our annual report, the ROI study, some great focus on events that Brand USA has hosted, a global marketplace, and then our current state of readiness. Certainly, as much of us have suffered over this last year, the news that is now coming out is certainly indicative of where we are hopeful and excited to return to travel and tourism. Just recently, I saw a report from Longwoods International where 81% of Americans are planning to travel in the next 6 months, and that is the highest that it's been in the last year. And even though we're here today to talk about international travel, I think we all agree that travel has to start at home before we're going to see the inbound numbers that we're used to seeing. The increase in vaccines, the increase in the spirit of the traveling public, and desire more than ever, an aspirational desire to visit the United States is certainly leading us as we go down this path. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to our CEO, who's going to walk us through some of these exciting times, and hand the ball to Chris Thompson. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome to everyone. Certainly appreciate you joining us. I'd like to first welcome our new board members. Keiko and Kristen, welcome to the board. Noel, welcome back. We're so excited about you involved and committed. I appreciate that commitment. Thanks also to our stakeholders and partners who are tuning in. Your engagement, your knowledge is critically important to what we're doing. And I guess our overall hope is that everybody is healthy and safe and managing the circumstances that Kyle referred to as well as could be expected. I'd like to take a point of personal privilege and acknowledge the passing of Arnie Sorensen, and my condolences to his family. Those of us that had the privilege of serving with Arnie, either as a board member or as staff of Brand USA, certainly appreciated what he contributed to the evolution of our organization almost virtually from day one. And then certainly what he has meant to the Marriott family, and what he's meant to the entire industry. Huge loss for all of us, and so thoughts go out to Arnie and his family. So this Thursday marks the 11 years since Brand USA was first brought into existence through the passage of the Travel Promotion Act. This time last year, I was traveling to Copenhagen and ended up in Dublin to meet with some of our travel trade and media friends as we gave a sneak preview to the launch of our third giant screen film. That was my last international business trip. I don't say that to reminisce necessarily, just to talk about the sheer magnitude of what the pandemic has done to all of our lives, as far as in ways that were unimaginable to any of us when it started. Today's meetings, we're going to talk about a lot about change. Certainly, we've had to evolve as an organization as our industry has been evolving. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about is really talking about that. This time of year is also the time when we bring forward, it's halfway through our current fiscal year, which is fiscal year 2021, nearly halfway. The end of this month will be halfway. But it's also the time of year we bring forward all of our annual reporting. So we're going to bring high-level summaries of our annual report that we have to turn into our Department of Commerce, our partner satisfaction survey, our ROI study, and our financial audit. All of those are good news, but that'll bring to a final close, our fiscal year, which ended last September 30. So as we continue to navigate the challenges of the pandemic and what it presents, it certainly has challenged our business model. When COVID-19 shut down travel a year ago, we really had to look and react quickly. I don't think any of us expected it to last as long as it has, but now that it has, we've realized that many of our partners are, how they're operating or not operating at the moment is very different, and it's altered their needs of us. We've had to keep our partners informed and the travel trade engaged along the way. We've also had to respectfully keep the drumbeat of inspiration alive with our consumers and friends around the world, particularly those in the 11 major markets that we promote to normally on a regular basis. We've also had to keep the organization on sound financial footing. We've had to continue to bring value to our partners and maintain our international footprint. As I said at the last meeting, when the pandemic first became a reality, all the texts and emails that we received from our partners saying and talking about how the value proposition and partnership they have with us is going to be as important as ever. So we've had to do the best we can to maintain our footprint around the world and our ability to stay relevant and resourced enough so that when we can get back to it, we'll be be able to do that. What we did at the close of last fiscal year is we got scaled ourselves down in activities and operations to a state of readiness. We've virtually been there since then. It is our minimum monthly investment in staying relevant and continuing to find unique ways to influence key aspects of the travel ecosystem, and doing it respectfully while we're waiting for international travel to return. So I want to talk a little bit about the body of work to date. Since our last meeting, since this board's last meeting, we've engaged numerous times on our Brand USA Global Marketplace. Certainly that proved to be a really valuable asset for us when we weren't able to meet face-to-face, and a way for us to keep the travel trade and the travel media engaged. And we launched it when we hosted the second iteration of our Brand USA Travel Week Europe back in the fall. And since then, have put it to really great use. We've also found ways to keep all of the content we've created over the last 10 years relevant. Most of that, and probably the highest profile portion of that, has been on our Go USA TV channel. So we're looking forward to bringing that to you and talking to you about it. And we continue to further embed values of diversity and equity and inclusion into our content and everything we do as it relates to marketing strategies. And as we look at our gating criteria, which we'll look at again today, we know that there will be recovery. And so our ability to lead a recovery campaign is in the works and in the planning. We're going to give you the newest iteration of what that looks like. And we look forward to when that becomes a reality and when we can move on to the next normal. So it's been a long year. I think everybody would agree the arrival of now a third vaccine is certainly showing us a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. We come into 2020, our fiscal 2020, laser focused on trying to figure out how do we forge a path forward as we can hopefully come out of this in this calendar year. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in person, face to face, when it's appropriate to do so. I know we're all really looking for that, but in the meantime, stay healthy and safe. And let me now turn over the meeting to Tom Garzilli, our CMO, and team to give you our marketing strategies and accomplishments since the last board meeting. Tom?
You are unmuted.
Let me try that again. Hello. Thanks, Chris, and hello to the board and to our hundreds of stakeholders and partners who are joining us today. To add to what you were saying, Chris, a year ago with the COVID crisis just beginning, we committed ourselves to keeping the lights on around the world and to being as prepared as possible for reentry into the marketplace when the time is right. And a crisis like this, accelerates the changes that were already underway and tests strategy. We'll certainly continue to see innovation and change come to our industry. And I'm proud to say that Brand USA strategies are as relevant and meaningful as ever. On our fundraising side, our years-long approach of building up a surplus of contributions over time, combined with careful spending, have provided a reserve of funds, which now helps sustain us in a really difficult period. Our consumer-facing strategy of inspiration through storytelling, which gave rise to our multi-screen, many voices approach, has built enduring platforms which continue to touch consumers and the trade in spite of a dramatic reduction of spending. We have 2 giant screen films which appear on Netflix and Amazon, continue to be. They're seen around the world every day. Migration from traditional TV and cable to streaming television, which is something we prepared for a number of years ago, has accelerated significantly. In our Go USA TV channel, which we created in 2018, is really experiencing an increase of viewership every day. United Stories, along with a trove of fabulous content that we've curated and produced, is fueling organic impressions. On the trade side, we've touched thousands, tens of thousands of global travel agents and buyers through the USA Discovery program and our webinar training webinars, both of which are things we were doing quite a while before the crisis, but we dramatically accelerated during 2020. And finally, as Chris mentioned, in the fall of last year, late summer, we launched our Brand USA Global Marketplace, our virtual platform that we see as a bridge for reentry for our partners to connect with the world. And while that was purpose-built during this crisis, it will take advantage of the acceleration of change to virtual tools. And even though we absolutely look forward to getting back to being together in person, some of the opportunities and advantages that virtual tools give us will continue to live as part of our toolbox long beyond the crisis. So, our activations evolve, but our strategy endures, and we are proud and honored to continue to deliver on the promise of keeping the lights on. And so we're happy to be sharing a lot of that with you today. And I'll start by just handing it off to Aaron Roden-Schwartz to talk about the annual report.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks to everybody for joining us today. As Chris previewed at the top, we're going to talk a little bit about a lot of the news to close out last year's FY 2020, starting here with our annual report. If you go to the next slide. the Travel Promotion Act, which is the law that creates Brand USA, requires us to produce this annual report. It goes to the main committees of jurisdiction in the House and Senate every year. Goes through the Department of Commerce. So once this report is in final draft form, we'll send it over to the Commerce Department. They'll review and transmit it to the Hill no later than May 15th. So even though FY 2020 concluded about 5 months ago, we're actually well ahead of schedule in producing this report and all that goes into it. The board has a copy of the draft of this report prior to the meeting. And so once it is finalized and transmitted, that's when we post it publicly to our website. Each year, this report is the single best encapsulation of the body of work that the organization brings forward throughout the year. Though the primary audience for the report is Congress, we've actually found that it's a really important document for us with many of our stakeholders, really brings to life many of the programs that we had pursued during the year, the results that we achieved, and brings some color to kind of the state of play in the industry and what our outlook is. For FY20, of course, the report demonstrates, as Chris said, that we had to be very agile and that we were able to quickly and strategically pivot as COVID shut down travel to a targeted set of activities that really were the important things that we needed to be doing, both in the immediate period when COVID first shut things down, and as we framed out a framework for us to continue to operate into the current fiscal year under these conditions. One thing that you'll see in the report, as Tom just mentioned, is not only did we find ways to support partners and keep the drumbeat of inspiration alive, but we actually found great increases in certain programs, as Tom just gave the example of our travel trade engagement, our distribution of organic content, all of those things. We really found ways to accelerate them given the unique conditions that the pandemic caused, with people sitting at home and not able to travel. If you go to the next slide. The report also contains our reporting and accounting against a series of things outlined in the Travel Promotion Act, as you can see here. Things such as our performance against the established objectives that were approved by the Commerce Department for FY20, an analysis of our market channel and demographic targeting, analysis of our rural and urban coverage in our marketing, our audited financials, our in-kind contributions, and more. So as I said, we look forward to sharing this with the public, to posting it publicly once it is approved and transmitted, but pleased to have delivered this early for the board's review, and happy to answer any questions at the end of the meeting about it. With that, I will turn it over to Karen Grunberg to talk a little bit about our FY 2020 partner survey.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm excited we got that done so early this year. I'm going to share with you our annual partner survey, and we can go on to the next slide. So I'm pleased to announce that once again, we have an over 90% satisfaction rate by our partners. This is the 5th year in the row we've seen our partners respond to this survey with so much zealousness. And what's great this year over the last years, we've increased the number of responses. We send out about 200 surveys, and this year we had more than 53% of our partners respond. And then we take the analysis and we do it both by type of organization and also contribution level. So I'll share some top-end results with you in the next slide. So the two key areas that we are managing towards is having great partnership value and maintaining partners. And again, over the last few years, we have remained over 90% from a rating there. We also have seen some growth in some areas. We've seen regarding Perception Brand USA, we see the highest and the smallest contributors growing by about 8%. And in performance evaluation, again, we are growing by categories. Both our state directors and our private sector industry partners have seen at least a 20% increase in those areas. So that we're leading the way and we're keeping it up despite the challenging times in communication with our partners. Next slide. We did ask a question in this year's survey that we haven't asked in the past, and that was, how much do you agree or disagree with the following statement, that our initiatives will be vital to an organization's recovery? We saw that 83% of the respondents with budgets of $250,000 and greater feel that Brand USA is incredibly vital to their success and recovery. Partners who contribute over $1 million responded at 100% level. One of the things we noticed in the comments made to this question is many of our states are looking at success in their next fiscal year, which begins July 1st, as they are looking at more immediate responses domestically in 2021. So that's a summary of our survey. We're happy to share any more details with you. But again, we thank our partners for their support, their response, and you're vital to our success. We can go on to the next slide.
Well, thank you, Karen. I'm going to talk a little bit about the FY 2020 ROI study, or economic impact. Each year we have this study. It delivers against one of the requirements of the Travel Promotion Act, but I think more broadly, it helps us track the macroeconomic impacts of our collective efforts, Brand USA's efforts, in conjunction with all of our great partners in the industry, as well as the returns to the U.S. economy for the public and private dollars that are entrusted to us. So before diving into the results of FY20, I just wanted to show this slide as sort of a demonstration on the total economic impact, kind of how that works. So how the direct spending created by the marketing, feeds into and ladders up to a total economic output equation. So in addition to the direct visitor spending purchases, as you can see, there's a lot of both indirect effects, the indirect economic output, through sourcing and supply chain, as well as induced economic impacts via the purchases and increases to the tax base as a result of the increased revenues from that spending. So it's just a little diagram that sort of shows, in the aggregate, how all those things add up to an economic output factor. On the next slide, just to give you a sense on that total economic impact, so you can see sort of how that stacks up to the total. So in addition to including the secondary impacts for FY20, Brand USA generated a total U.S. economic output of about $1.2 billion, which sustained over 7,500 jobs and more than about $350 million in personal income. So still some decent results. However, as you'll see on the next slide, just to put that in context, I obviously don't need to remind anyone on this call what an abnormal year FY 2020 was for international destination marketing. Unsurprisingly, the economic impact and results of destination marketing was, of course, disrupted as well, as you can sort of see on the slide how it stacks up last year compared to the prior 7 years. And I guess what I'd say is that while our economic impact and the ultimate return on investment figure has fluctuated a bit over the years, FY20, of course, stands out, and it's lower last year for two principal reasons in our case. The first is that the year only included 5 months of quote unquote normal travel over a baseline, of course, of 12 months of operations. But also because of the timing of the pandemic at the beginning of March, it essentially canceled the peak travel season from basically every one of our top 11 markets. So the benefits of the creative content development and campaign design that we had put in basically went unrealized. So it's both the amount of months of travel and also the timing and the cycle of travel of those months that really, predominantly leads to that lower number. That said, I still think there's some results that we feel pretty good about. For example, our marketing still generated over 215,000 incremental visits to the U.S. between October of 2019 and February of 2020. Across all of the markets, each dollar that we spent on marketing generated about $7.7 of visitor spending, and including all overhead and all organizational expenses, it's still an ROI of about 6.4 to 1. So it's a good, still positive returns for the economy, despite the difficult circumstances in the larger economy. In aggregate over the last 8 years, we still have averaged an ROI of about 23 to 1 in terms of visitor spending return to dollars in our budget. This full report is, along with all the methodologies and a lot more detail and breakdown, is available right now on our corporate site, thebrandusa.com. Key elements of it, of course, will also be included in our annual report when that's made available. I'm sure that there may be some questions on this, but pleased to bring this ROI information forward again, sort of earlier in the year than typically do. We obviously, moving forward, we will continue to measure these impacts and report them out. All things considered, we see where 20 sits in the scheme of things, but all things considered, still nice to have a positive impact overall. I think that wraps up our ROI conversation and economic impact conversation for today. If you go to the next slide. One thing that we wanted to touch on today in our meeting is some of the challenges to the funding model that we have moving forward here, and just to make sure people are aware of a couple of things that we're working through. So, and Chris, feel free to weigh in here as well. But I just wanted to note that we're of course funded, as I think most of the callers know, by a combination of contributions from non-federal sources, as well as these matching funds from the ESTA fees that visitors from visa waiver program markets apply for. According to the law, every $14 fee, $10 of that goes to a fund at Treasury that we're able to access when we bring forward private sector contributions based in up to $100 a year in matching funds based on the prior year collections. Of course, when we were reauthorized in December of 2019, that ESTA fee was actually increased, although not yet implemented. And so actually the number of applications needed to get to that 100 million is lower once that new fee is implemented. However, as many have noted to us, the Travel Promotion Fund received only about 62 million in transfers last fiscal year, meaning that this current year is the first time that full 100 authorized by law is not available to us. And we have our eye on the ball for the future, understanding that ESTA applications remain sort of down. Therefore, there could be some challenges in having that total amount of matching funds available next year. So I say all this to note that we are aware of the issue, and many of our allies in the industry are aware of the issue. I did want to make a couple of points, though. The first is that we talk a lot about the state of readiness, and the point of the state of readiness, as we'll talk a little bit more about again in a second, is that we're able to maintain it through the medium to long term. And so we're still in absolutely fine shape in that state of readiness. The second is that we know that even though Brand USA is barred from advocacy and lobbying, there's a lot of efforts being made to help remedy this issue and get this information in front of those legislators and others that sort of need to know about it. So we're aware that there's a real good effort on that front. I guess just more broadly, nothing has changed about our value proposition or our viability. It's simply the result of a funding model that in an unexpected disruption to the global economy, global finances. So we will continue to be strategic and adaptable to these changing conditions, just as we have been over the past year. But did want to note that this is a issue that we are managing through as a team. And Chris, I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that point.
No, Aaron, I think you did a great job. And so this is something that we've known about as far as the potential challenges to our funding model. And this is the first time we've actually brought it forward for consideration at this board meeting. And as Aaron said, we talked about it, presented it to our board today. We definitely are looking at some strategic planning as it relates to ways for us to address it other than the traditional sources, and then are hopeful that our advocacy army in Washington, D.C. will find paths to bring some relief through potential COVID bills that are being introduced into Congress.
Great, thanks, Chris. So I guess moving to the next slide, talk a little bit about where we are in the current fiscal year and in our framework. And this slide will look familiar to those of you that have tuned into the last board meeting. And Chris referenced this at the top, but just as a reminder, we developed this basic 3-part framework at the end of last fiscal year, and carrying us into this current fiscal year, it continues to guide us. The state of readiness, which we are currently in, really refers to our ability to continue to influence key aspects of the travel ecosystem while maintaining and maximizing the resources that we'll dedicate to recovery when recovery comes. And we really do, as you'll see some of the highlights in just a few minutes from my colleagues, have continued to engage in some really impactful programming with our partners, with the global distribution networks for travel, with consumers, and so forth, and really found some good success in those targeted programs. We have a set of gating criteria that we'll go through again in just a few minutes. That really the purpose there is to measure when there is sustained progress against a series of key leading indicators in any individual market that gives us the confidence to know that really things are moving forward in a good shape, and that we're going to be able to drive enough volume to mount a full recovery campaign. And you'll hear a little bit more about the architecture of that ultimate recovery campaign a little bit later in our presentation today. So if you go to the next slide, here's a glimpse at what some of those key gating criteria are. These are primarily leading indicators, as our role really is to capitalize on the openness and desire to travel to the United States and drive consumers toward activating against that desire. We continue to assess the appropriateness of each criteria, the target levels that we've set on an ongoing basis. But this is sort of a snapshot of those basic indicators that we are tracking. They span everything from consumer measurement, including direct sentiment, as well as revealed indicators and behavioral indicators such as flight and product searches. It includes key U.S. and source market travel policies, as people have to be able to travel without really onerous personal burdens in order for the market to return at scale. And of course, air capacity is so important, both because it's how the bulk of our visitors get here, but also because it's a very, available seats, a very tactical and close-in leading indicator of demand in any given market. And of course, we continue to track our case counts and our openness to an influx of international visitors in our own communities here at home. If you go to the next slide, please. One of the things that we've done, and since our last meeting, just about a month ago, we launched a COVID-19 dashboard. And everybody on the call today, I encourage you to go to our website, thebrandusa.com, where you can actually see this dashboard and kind of see where things are rating and toggle with some of the options. This dashboard is a real-time tracker of where we are in each of our top 11 markets. It also includes a domestic tracker with links to state-specific travel information. And as I said, you can see the dashboard on our corporate site, and you sort of toggle with some of the buttons. We've made this available because it's important, especially for our DMO partners, to be able to understand our process, and of course, to be able to see and track for themselves, how each of these 11 markets are doing and how they're faring. At this point, as you can see here with Canada, there are some positive signs, but unsurprisingly, none of the markets yet have achieved this type of sustained momentum above or below the thresholds that we've set that sort of have met our targets. On the next slide, you'll see just a snapshot of what Mexico looks like. You'll see there's a little bit of variety depending upon the market. In particular, airline capacity in Mexico is doing relatively well. On the next slide, you'll see Germany. So as I mentioned on our site, all 11 of these are publicly available for you to review. Feel free to ask us any questions once you've done that. And you'll see that on the homepage of thebrandusa.com. So, this continues, the gating criteria continue to be main set of indicators we're tracking to understand when things are a go to transition from readiness to recovery. It's not a all or nothing. Each of these are 11 separate markets. It may be that some of them are in good shape prior to others. And so it's very granular look that we're taking on an ongoing basis to measure where the markets are. Well, with that, Chris, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, I believe, Tracy Lanza, to take us through a little bit more about all the great work that we've been up to since the last board meeting in our state of readiness.
Thanks, Aaron. I'm unmuting myself. So as Aaron said a few slides earlier, when the pandemic hit, we pivoted. If you go to the next slide, and first and foremost, we focused on education and engagement of the travel trade. There has always been a thirst for learning about the USA, and our Discovery program was really purpose-built to deliver that to travel agents all over the world. And what you'll see in our annual report from FY20 is that active users were up 72% year over year. And in Q1 alone of this year, we are still seeing growth, we're still seeing interest, and new badges completed in Q1 are almost 4,000. So we'll have more updates on that as the year goes by. If you go to the next slide. Inspiring webinars is also something that our market teams specialize in. And again, in FY20, we trained almost 71,000 agents. And in FY20 Q1, almost 12,000. And again, these numbers are all increasing. That shows a lot of excitement and engagement with our content. And so when the time is right, we know we will have a well-prepared travel trade community. Go to the next slide. In addition to education and engagement, making connections was critical for us to replace some of the infrastructure that our partners lost when the pandemic forced them to lose their resources. So in October 2020, we launched our interactive platform called Brand USA Global Marketplace. It allowed the travel trade and partners to explore and connect directly with USA destinations, attractions, and other businesses. We had one-on-one meetings, which allowed for scheduling of B2B meetings. We created educational sessions, enrichment sessions, and lots of networking that allowed people to connect with people they hadn't seen in almost a year. So if you go to the next page, the first thing right out of the bat, we hosted a Nashville New Year's concert, which gave Nashville the opportunity to host an event that they showed on broadcast locally to a global media audience, global journalists and media. And it was an hour-long program on New Year's Day that allowed them to gain access to an audience they would not have had otherwise. So this is a great example of how our partners can also use this platform for their own purposes. Next slide. Since January, we've had 3 Focus On events, the first in Canada, one in Mexico, and one recently in Germany. And thank you to Noel for being part of that panel and welcoming our travel trade. What is really important about these Focus On events is that they showed us another way to use the global marketplace. Whereas we launched with Travel Week in the end of October, these Focus On events give us a chance to really help our partners get closer to the market. During the day-long and sometimes 2-day-long events, what we do is work with market experts, marketing experts, media experts, all who can give our partners a chance to really understand the dynamics of that specific place. The first in Canada on Feb 4, we had 387 registered delegates and had almost 700,000 earned media impressions. Go to the next slide. In Mexico was a 2-day event. The first day event was really about education for partners about the market. Day 2 was for travel agents to help them learn more about the United States. And we had almost 800 delegates registered and almost 2.5 million earned media impressions. And if we'll go to the next, Focus On Germany, which was just last week, we had 217 registered delegates and over 1 million earned media impressions. So we will be continuing these Focus On events. We are scheduling a few upcoming, and we will be holding these throughout the year. In addition, a little bit later this month, we will be continuing our one-to-one business meetings that we launched with Travel Week for Canada, Mexico, Europe. On April 20th, our 4th Focus On event will be featured for the United Kingdom and Ireland. April 29th, Nashville returns with a mission on the platform. And then May 11th and 12th, we will have Focus On Australia and New Zealand with more to be announced. Next slide. So, in addition to focusing on education and engagement, we also focused on entertainment. And, if you've been paying attention to these board meetings for the last couple of years, you will have heard us talk a lot about streaming video and the rise in streaming video. And as Tom mentioned earlier, sometimes crises accelerate trends. And in this particular case, we really focused on making sure we were delivering on our goal of more people watching more video more often. And I should take a moment and just shout out to Mark Lapidus, Justin Pyle, and the team of people that have supported them to make sure Go USA TV really shone during this important time when people were stuck at home looking for things to watch on TV. And so what they did was identify new distribution opportunities. So our pivot with Go USA TV was to move from paid media to distribution. And so Go USA TV, which offers 70+ hours of content featuring every state, territory, the District of Columbia, and in total 187 US destinations, is available to people all over the world, not just on our paid platforms, but also on new platforms. So if you go to the next page, I'll talk a little bit about one of the biggest successes we've had. Next slide, which is, I'll tell you and then I'll show you a video. Samsung TV Plus, and I'll tell you in a second, kind of some of the wins we've had there. In the meantime, what I want you to see here is a minute-long video. Oops. Okay, we'll stop. We'll do the video. What I wanted you to see is a minute-long video, which is a show reel that shows all of the new content that we've created over the last 2019. And from there, I'll take you through the new distribution opportunities. Okay, Brian.
We don't separate the person from the place.
Wow. Beautiful spot you got here.
Isn't this lovely? Welcome to the world famous Crochet Museum.
Oh my goodness.
Whenever you visit a new community, you immediately feel this bond.
Everyone loves music.
Music has developed from so many different parts of the world. It's amazing.
We've got 2 envelopes. One is heads and one is tails.
With the toss of the coin, that will decide which activities that we get to do.
All a person has is his or her story.
It's about having places like that you can go and just be.
Before you leave this planet, you must come here to visit.
Thanks very much. I think what that video shows, and what if you've engaged with the Go USA TV channel at all, what it shows is there's a lot of unique things that you can see when you visit the United States, but the combination of unique things, the proximity of unique things to each other that you can fit into one trip is really something special and not necessarily on offer in other countries. So back to the expanded distribution. Again, if our goal is to get more people watching more video more often, we have had a really, we've hit a home run with Samsung TV Plus, which launched in the UK in August of 2020. And some of the more recent watch duration has been 500 hours per day in the UK in November and December. And in early January, I saw a peak of 1,500 hours per day of content on Go USA TV. So this is really a home run. It's not paid for distribution. They've picked up our channel. I believe we're one of 2 travel channels on Samsung TV Plus. And it is a revenue sharing opportunity. So we do get, a small amount of money from them on a monthly basis based on viewership. The estimated media value, if we were going to replicate that and pay for that, would have been about $800,000. And that's based on the cost per view that we had to pay per previous OTA buys in the UK in 2019. So this we consider a success story. And with that, if you go to the next page, we are anticipating even more. As we announced during our Focus On event in Canada, we will be launching on Go Transit this month. Go Transit is the Ontario Public Transit Service, and they are launching their free Wi-Fi and education entertainment. We will be featuring 20 Go USA videos. In 2019, viewership on Go Transit was plus 70 million. So we're hoping that they can get back to that amount, because that'll really help us a lot. Samsung TV Plus, we are continuing our growth, and we will be launching in the UK and EU on mobile this spring. And then Reach TV, which many of you have seen probably as you're traversing airports, will also be launching this spring in the US, Canada, and the UK in 90 airports and 700 locations, and then coming soon to Australia, Ireland, Singapore, and Dubai. So we've had a lot of success with Go USA TV. And when the whole entertainment industry is on pause from a production perspective, I really have to say the team took advantage of that and made sure that our content could be provided on all these channels that were hungry for great travel content. So if you go to the next page. So those are the highlights from H1, and what I want to take you now is a little bit of our insight into moving from readiness to recovery. So if you go to the next slide. We are in development of a creative campaign, but it's really not new development. It's really shining up our existing campaign called United Stories. So I'll read to you a little bit. This is not consumer facing, but a little bit of the intent that we're going to try and get to with this creative. We are a nation of many, an ever-evolving mix of people, places, and cultures, connected by small towns, big cities, ancestral lands, pop culture, historic landmarks, theme parks, red rocks, white sands, and blue skies. They are all waiting for you to discover. Visit the USA. The next chapter is just beginning. What's your story? So hopefully you see in there some of the themes, some of the strategies, some of the positioning words that you've seen throughout Brand USA's existence. Our foundational platform of the United States of Awesome Possibilities welcomes everyone, still exists. Our Many Voices strategy, which Tom talked about at the top of the meeting, still exists. And our messaging principles of possibility, proximity, and welcome are all still built in here. So you will see those not reinvented, but renewed when we launch our new campaign. So we go to the next slide. Our recovery framework hasn't changed since November, when you may have seen this last. Our business goal is to lead the recovery of the US travel and tourism industry internationally. We want to build brand perception, consideration, engagement, and drive to bookings. As I just mentioned, our creative platform is United Stories, and our comms tasks are 3. First, we need to prove we're ready. We need to welcome the world back and entice and convert. And those 3 phases will be executed across a number of different channels and different tactics. Prove we're ready. We will be working with influencers and promoting across our owned and on native platforms. Welcoming the world back, we will be creating a TV commercial. We will have branded content, online video, social media, and earned media outreach. And then to entice and convert, we'll be working with airlines, OTAs, tour operator co-ops, search engine marketing, and in-market activation. So we have quite a full plan that we're working on. So go to the next slide. So what does this mean for United Stories? Kind of what are we pivoting to? From mass travel to meaningful travel, what you see and what you do to who you connect with, because we think connection is really going to be a very important part of what people are trying to do once they can fly and visit. Focus on individual stories is going to shift to focusing on collective stories. And then we will expand destination as hero, as destination, as connection point. So those are the changes that you'll see in United Stories. It will probably look and feel very much as you've seen it before, which we're so proud of, but we are going to make these shifts to make it more relevant, even more relevant than previous years. Next slide will show you the different areas that we're exploring, from the global campaign to make sure that the thought leadership that went into this campaign and the research that went into this campaign are embraced by the industry. We will bring this into education and training across the Discovery program, across the global marketplace. There will be lots of co-marketing opportunities for our partners to take part in. We will be working with influencers and people of influence, which is another way we've been talking about it. We will be focused on events and experiences, and of course, earned media. And then, you know, in the spaces in between, there'll be lots of different tactics and ideas. So if you go to the next page, there's our insignia. And if you go to the next page, one of the things we've been working on this year, and we're so happy to give an update on, is our multicultural content strategy. So if you go to the next page, as part of our mission to drive the economy and job growth in the travel and tourism sector, we are committed to diversity and inclusivity in our marketing efforts. Our intent is to shape a national effort that helps international tourists discover Black-owned businesses and experiences across the USA. And we are proud to be working closely with Blacks in Travel and Tourism, whose mission it is to ensure Black travel and tourism businesses are full participants in the travel industry and to help build more diverse and inclusive destinations. These destinations are small businesses. They may focus on cultural heritage, food and beverage, lodging, attractions, shops, and different points of interest all over the United States. And our goal with this initiative is to make sure that we are rising up and helping international travelers see all that the USA has to offer. So if you go to the next page, there are a couple different things we've got in the works. So again, with Blacks in Travel and Tourism, BTT, as we call them fondly, we will be showcasing the cultural richness of the entire USA. We will be fostering industry engagement with Black-owned travel experiences throughout the US, and we'll be working with partners to identify experiences and itineraries that drive inspiration and engagement. All of these initiatives, and which will be built into a number of different amplification strategies, will be featured on our website, visittheusa.com, GoUSA TV, Visit the USA and GoUSA social channels, the Brand USA Global Marketplace, USA Discovery Program, the Global Inspiration Program. We will be creating travel trade product and itineraries, and of course, earned media outreach. Phase 1 will focus on partner outreach, education, and content collection, and that will be spearheaded by Karen Grunberg and her team. So if you go to the next slide, that is it for me. So I'll hand this off back to you, Chris.
And Kyle, Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Tom, and the entire team. Very well done. At this time, we're going to move into some of the financial reports, and so I'll call on Don Richardson and Tom O'Toole to walk us through. I'm sorry, just Don, to walk us through on the audit report. Don?
Thanks, Kyle, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm pleased to and excited to report that once again we have a good report on our audit from our audit this year. As the slide indicates, we received an unmodified opinion issued by KPMG with no material weaknesses, and no significant deficiencies in our internal controls. And more importantly, we also did not get a management letter for the 5th year in a row, and that's quite a feat. So congratulations to the entire team. As I shared with the board this morning, I believe that's directly related to our policies and procedures, as well as our staff adhering to those policies and procedures. So once again, we had great results. Happy to report that. I also wanted to share that the process itself was unusual this year, in that it was conducted entirely remotely. And that was quite a challenge. And kudos to everyone who participated, but especially Jesse Newcomb, the Director of Finance, and Jessica McLean, our controller. We had to do some extra heavy lifting, but congratulations to the entire team. Great news.
All right, Don, we're going to leave it with you to move right into the 2021 Q1 and year-end financials.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll just start off by saying our results year to date is really a reflection of where we are in the world with the COVID-19. So a lot of our numbers are less than they were in previous years. As Aaron talked about earlier, we're really operating in our readiness budget. So our budget is reduced greatly until we get to recovery. But looking at the slide, looking at the travel promotion fund, a couple of notes. As Aaron referred to earlier, this year the fund is only funded up to $62 million for the reasons that he discussed. And right now we're forecasting that we're going to focus on claiming at least $35 million of those funds. We also are strategizing on other ways to actually get to that $62 million. Part of our challenge this year is really related to the fact that in prior years, we didn't really have to get to the matching funds or to qualify for the matching funds. There was a different combination of in-kind versus cash. It's been as low as 80% in-kind, 20% cash. Several years ago, it went to 30% cash and 70% in-kind. But this year and last year, was the combination is 50-50. And in the COVID-19 world, getting cash is hard to come by. So that's an additional challenge. As I said before, partner revenues is down. We are hoping to take that up in the 3rd and 4th quarters. Expenditures, we're really managing very conservatively. At this point, we're in our readiness budget, and we're actually functioning within or under that readiness budget year to date. All of that said, cash reserves remain strong thanks to our prior years. And so overall, we're managing our available resources conservatively and focusing on maintaining our cash reserves going forward. Meanwhile, paying attention to our future strategies. So with that said, I'll turn it back to you, Kyle.
Thank you, Don. Next slide, Chris.
Yes, sir. I think we're going to let Jake cover this one.
Yep. So we're going to let Jake cover all of this.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. We have 2 new board members. Welcome them to their first meeting. We had a nice orientation about a month ago, and Kyle has had outreach with them and with the other directors on the board in setting up the committee slates for the 4 committees you see on the slide here, paying special attention, of course, to the audit committee, which is the only committee required by the Travel Promotion Act. The slate of candidates was included in the board materials and just requires a motion, a second, and an approval, if we can have those.
So moved, Jake. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. All those in favor with a hearty aye. 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 All right. And any opposed? Seeing none, Jake, there
That
you
should
go.
be all. The only other item, and Kyle, forgive me if I missed it. Did we approve the minutes from the November 17, 2020 meeting at the beginning of today's meeting?
We did not. We can do that right now.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion from a member of the board to approve the minutes from November 17, 2020.
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Keiko. Again, all those in favor with an aye?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? And the minutes pass. Thank you, Jake, for reminding us of that.
Very good. Thanks so much, Kyle.
Okay. Next slide, Chris or Brian.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, this is just a slide showing the next two board meetings as they've been scheduled and should be on all of your calendars. May 19th to the 20th, scheduled to be in Washington, D.C. if we're able to do so. Otherwise virtual if not. And then the fourth quarter meeting in conjunction with U.S. Travel's board meeting in Colorado Springs, again, if we're able to, and if not, virtual. And then our commitment moving forward will be to get this shored up to get it to about 4 meetings out at your May meeting. With that, Mr. Chair, we're ready to move on to questions. And I'll ask Brian and Aaron to navigate that from any we might have online or otherwise through the operator.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, if the operator could please give instructions to folks about how to log a question. And once you do that, we'll start reading some of the written questions.
Hi, Aaron. It's just written questions.
Okay, just so there's one question submitted that I may have been typed and answered, but I'll read it here, which is and ask that we better explain how the new funding mix, the 50-50 cashed in kind, could impact us. As Don just said, in the reauthorization of our federal funding source that was in December 2019, the minimum floor of in kind as a percentage of our submissions for matching funds has been increased first from 20% in the original TPA to 30% in 2014 to now 50%. That does create challenges, especially in the COVID environment. In our normal operating environment, it's certainly something that's doable. We often were near 50% as a cash in kind ratio due to the fact that a lot of the cash is from our cash-strapped domestic partners. It, of course, takes on new meaning in this environment. But so it is a challenge, but we will continue to work through it.
Can I just interject, Aaron, just quickly on that? Just in real terms, I think the question is more about what is the impact on us in real terms. I think it's just to say that in this current year where we have $60 million in ESTA funds, and we're going to be able to unlock about 34 million because we have 17 million of cash. In the old model, we would have unlocked 56 million against that same 17. So it's really has a real impact on us of about $22 million right now. So just want to make that point of, the real term impact of it. But thanks.
No, thanks, Tom. That's great. We had another question. Some of these questions may have been subsequently answered, but we had a question asking, what about the European market? What are our plans? I know that there was some conversation of both currently what we're doing on Global Marketplace. There's some upcoming events, maybe worth reiterating those, and then just where Europe sits in our scheme of our recovery thinking. So
clearly Europe is always essential to all of our plans. Obviously, we are right now, as a matter of fact, putting together for the marketplace a series of one-to-one meetings that are an extension of Travel Week that we had last fall. And we are doing focus on we are doing focus on events. We just did a focus on Germany event. We'll do some other focus on events specifically for European countries. But Canada and Mexico right now are the closest in markets and share the most in common with partners who see those as quick recovery markets. But really, right there with them is the UK, Germany, and the remainder of Europe. So we'll continue to have that as a centerpiece of everything we do.
If I could make a comment, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi. Okay, because it was muted. This is Noelle from ATI. I just wanted to congratulate Brand USA on the German focus. It was outstanding in the global marketplace, and the feedback from the international tour operators was very positive, and the media there. It was really well done, and how I think it's important to emphasize the importance of the travel trade in the European market, because they're key to the part that's going to have to do with driving the market, as well as the part that has to do with making sure they have the most up-to-date information for the clients, because their feedback was that the number one what needed to happen most was for us just to be open, for us to say, okay, we're open, but and to keep America top of mind, which is what you've been doing. So Brand USA is really the best organization for all the listeners on here to spread the word, to be able to partner with, and then also partnering with the travel trade in Europe. They are the pent-up demand in Germany and in the UK and in Netherlands is very, very strong, and America is really where they want to come to. So they said that the number one thing was product was for open spaces, but that they also want to return to our cities and that they want to get to our beaches. They've particularly mentioned Florida and Hawaii, but also they mentioned our national parks and our major cities. So I think that Europe is going to be low-hanging fruit for this year. Oh, that was the other important point. They said they want it to happen this summer. And so it's really important for all of us, all the listeners, push our government to open up as soon as possible, just to say, okay, we're open. And that's what the UK has done. They've given a date. We need a date, and for it to be as soon as possible, so the bookings just really start to flow. And Brand USA, working with USTA, and all of you, is the best. So that's it.
Thank you, Noelle. I know that we're running a little bit over time, so what I'll suggest is there's a few more written questions submitted, some of which we're able to speak to. So we'll post written answers to those on our website, as we've done in past practice. We run a little bit over time, so check back into the page with the recording of this session. We'll post the written answers there. And Chris, with that, I'll turn it back to you for any closing remarks.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, that's the extent of our presentation today. We appreciate the commitment of the board and all our stakeholders and colleagues and friends online. We look forward to working with you in the months ahead.
Likewise, thank you, Chris, and the entire Brand USA team. Appreciate all the work that you did in bringing forth that presentation today. Again, thank you to all the participants in the call. We appreciate you taking the time to join us and to participate in the process. And thank you to my fellow board members. Appreciate your time this morning and then on the public session as well. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.